Welcome to Coach David Schuman's Success for Life podcast, where Coach Schuman tackles the important topics and interviews the very best in business, sports, and leadership to help you maximize your success. If you're looking to get the most out of everything you do, then listen now to the Success for Life podcast.
Dave Schuman here with the Success for Life podcast. I'm on with Matt Theriault from Epic Real Estate. We're going to share some amazing cash flow tips for you from a real estate standpoint. We're going to help you understand how you can build your own wealth, not just your business, not just making money, but how to build real wealth through real estate and multiple streams of income. Let's welcome Matt to the screen today. How's everything going this Memorial Day weekend, Matt?
Things are going good, David. Thanks for having me.
Well, Matt's out over in California and has built quite a reputation in helping people build their multiple streams of income and real estate being the backbone of that. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little background on it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years or so of my life in the music business and just had a ball until one day this thing called the digital download came along and it's kind of turned the whole industry upside down. People stopped buying compact discs, and within 6 months I found myself bankrupt, divorced, and bagging groceries. So it really hit us hard. And at the time I had no idea what was going on. I mean, in hindsight, it's crystal clear. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but
right.
At the time, I mean, we just had no idea the impact that the internet would have on the way that people consume music. And just kind of cut out the middleman. And we were the middleman. We were a record label. We had major label distribution, did really well until then. So while bagging groceries, because I had no plan B at this point in my life, I was 34 years old at the time as well. So I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And after about 6 months of a real pity party and blaming everybody and everything and pointing the finger at everyone, it couldn't have been my fault. There's no possible way that was possible, And I just wanted my life back. I wanted my money back. And I just didn't know what to do next. I knew I had to learn something new. And of all people was the grocery store manager. He was 34 years old as well. So he'd been there working there since he was 16. He was 2 years away from receiving his pension. And along the way, he'd been able to pick up a half a dozen or so apartment buildings. And he just kind of laid this whole future out for him. Like 2 years, he was going to be retired. And, in 2 years, could graduate to checker, And, he said one thing to me that just resonated with me, and I probably repeated it 1,000 times, is he said, real estate, it's the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth. And he says, Matt, I'm average. I'm not smart. I don't know this. I've been bagging groceries here for 18 years. And at that moment in my life, I was feeling pretty below average myself. So I took it on. And thank God I did, because it's almost eclipsed what the music business had done for me.
So I find it interesting. So you had a lot of success. You came out. Were you in Persian Gulf War at all? Or
I was active. I was active during that time, but I did not have to go. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you go and you come from that transition, you create success in the business. Obviously, there's certain things that you were able to do to create success there in that label. Did you find that once you started to create that success, that as it was your first time out on your own, creating your own success, maybe in your first business, that you had blinders on that success might just go on and on and on?
Yeah, I'd definitely say that was it. I think I was also, I don't know, I think lucky is too strong of a word. I was fortunate enough that I was good at something that the marketplace was willing to pay for. And it was something I really enjoyed doing. So there wasn't like a daily discipline to get up and, go through affirmations and create a to-do list and then, buckle down and be really disciplined and consistent with it. And it just all came naturally for me. So I don't know if I was necessarily a businessman. I just fell into a business or a trade, I guess, that people were willing to pay me for.
That's interesting. And then now when you come, you pick yourself up, you go into real estate. How do you go and what did this fellow bag checker teach you that you said, hey, you didn't have any money probably at the time, right, to really put into real estate? How do you go and do your first real estate opportunity, take advantage of, find it?
So the logical place for me to go start was not to continue bag groceries and invest on the side. I went out and I said, I can't do this anymore. And I went out, what I thought was the right thing to do is to get a real estate license. And I ended up being a real estate agent. And I did that for about 4 years till it kind of hit me that, if this is the final frontier for all that money, where all that wealth is, I think I'm sitting on the wrong side of the desk.
Right.
And because I'd had some clients that had done very well for themselves, I was like, I want to be doing what they're doing. Right. And so I made this transition from agent to investor. I had a little bit of money, but not enough to buy a house. I was still carrying around that bankruptcy with me, so I couldn't get conventional financing. But I did. I found a really cool educational program. I made a large investment in that, and they had this one class called Creative Acquisition Strategies. And I don't know, at that moment in my life, that really resonated with me because I didn't really have any other options but to get creative. So that's how it started. And long story short, just keep it really compact and simple. I just learned how to get the sellers to finance my deals for me.
That's a simple explanation for something that most people have absolutely no idea.
Right. I felt myself going down a path that might be too complicated or too much detailed. I said, let me just make it ultra simple and see where we go with this.
Well, that's what we love out here, getting into like the weeds a little bit and getting to understand, not just the basics, but how people can go about doing it. So seller financing, which I would guess that any person that wants to get into real estate and doesn't have a lot of money would say, wow, that's an amazing way to get into it. How the heck do I get someone that I'm buying from to go ahead and then finance it? What does the demographic of that individual look like?
Right.
What company, if you're buying commercial, right? What does the demographic of that look like?
Sure. Well, it's with single family houses, dealing directly with the owner. But 95% of all the transactions that happen in real estate each and every year will not do this for you. They will not entertain this idea. So you're looking for the 5% of those people that we call, I don't know, quote unquote, in a nice way, motivated sellers. But what has them motivated is some form of distress going on in their world, whether it's financial distress, personal distress, or the property itself is distressed. So that's the demographic. That's who you start with, because in most cases, it's not going to happen for you and everywhere else. So that's the person you're looking for. And then to actually make it happen, rather than presenting them with a traditional offer that you would if you were out to buy your primary residence, you go through a series of questions, process of building rapport, and you just kind of ask them, okay, so you got this issue going on in your world, and how much money do you need right now? And how long are you willing to wait for the rest? So that's kind of how the basic structure of that conversation goes.
Interesting. And then from a buyer standpoint, so you're looking around for properties. Are those the properties that say for sale by owner, not using the real estate? Are those properties in particular ones that you would look for in general from that standpoint? Is that a healthy place to start for those kind of properties?
Probably not. Those can be. I mean, the reason they're selling by owner, there's a reason there. Either they can't afford a real estate agent or they don't like real estate agents. And both of those scenarios don't always lend themselves to deep discounts. Where you go for the discounts and the creative acquisitions is you got to find them before they even raise their hand and say, I'm for sale. So it's a lot of marketing, direct marketing to sellers that have something in there, I don't know, something that's attached to them that's a sign of distress. You can go through bankruptcy records and find people that own property. That could be a list, or people that are going through divorce, or you can go through the city or the county and pull every house that has a tax lien on it, or every house that has a code violation on it. So those are all symptoms of distress, and you start there. And the old-fashioned way was either door knocking, cold calling, or direct mail. Today, it's gotten a little more sophisticated because of the internet, and with just a place like Facebook alone, they've got so much data on people. That's a good place to look for these types of people as well.
Right. So you can really target them through Facebook ads and some version of that can go and really get them to respond to you. I guess you don't have to as much to put the like the signs out there, we buy houses, because you could actually target the exact demographic you want nowadays with Facebook ads. Is that something that you're seeing in your side of the business that's really been a helpful transition?
Yeah, definitely. And we still do the signs like that. That hasn't gone away because they still work, is why you continue to see them everywhere. If you're in a normal state of mind, you're like, why is all this trash out there? And why do the people keep doing this? It's because they work. Right. But yeah, to build this type of lead generation machine that we do for our business, it's, you need a few lines in the water. So Facebook is one, your bandit signs are one, direct mail is one, Google pay-per-click is another.
And you can find these. I mean, you don't have to buy lists, you can, but you can find these readily available if you go to tax records and I guess you can go and look up who's recently getting divorced. I mean, you can look up legal roles and start to gather that kind of information. And essentially, you're providing a service for those people. You're getting them out of a situation that they want to get into. And is that how you would pitch that almost to them?
Yeah, it's funny that you just brought that up because I haven't thought about this in a while. But, sometimes real estate investors like myself, we get criticized for almost falling into a category of being ambulance chasers. And how we take advantage of little old ladies and we take advantage of people at low points in their life. And, and it might look like that from the outside because the person that's making those types of judgments, everything's going fine in their world. So they don't have this distress. But when you start interacting with this, with distressed property owners or just people that are just going through something, I'll tell you, the number of people, like the sale of their house, that's not the most important thing going on in their life right now. It's not, they don't hold it as high regard as the person, the normal everyday person that's not experiencing that type of stress. Like that is the sale of that house and the quick sale of that house. So they don't have to deal with the market. They don't have to deal with repairs. They don't have the money to pay for even closing costs or whatever it may be. For that, there's so much value in them being able to get cash for the house right now so they can clear this other thing that's really keeping them up at night, or is really some impending danger in their world, quote unquote.
Absolutely. I think that's a big thing for people to understand because, and I believe in sales, you're solving problems in real estate, you're solving problems. And anytime you're offering something, you're everything that's legal, you're figuring out a solution to help somebody either get out of something they're in or get into something that they want to be in. And I think that's an important service. And, I'm a capitalist, so I believe that if you're profiting from something, that means you're providing some form of value.
Absolutely.
And if you're providing,
the mentality that we have is people will exchange equity for peace of mind. And just because you value equity more doesn't mean that there's someone else that values their peace of mind more. Absolutely. Right? And so that's the trade-off.
Absolutely. Equity for peace of mind. I actually am writing that down because that's a great one. I think that is an incredibly important thing. And what I wanted to get into, which I think is really interesting. So once you choose your properties, you start to put together a deal. From a financial standpoint, what kind of deal are you looking to put together, and what type of those single family houses are you looking for?
Sure. I'm not a fix and flipper. I'm not a wholesaler. I'm a buy and hold person. I'm very much focused on creating residual income and just continue to acquire assets and stack on top of that monthly residual income for myself. So the deals that I'm looking for are things that are going to pay me more money than it costs me to hold on to them. So cash flow, right? Positive cash flow is what I'm looking for.
So those are rental properties that you're looking to, and Is it single family? Is it multiple family? What type? It's
almost all single family, and we create the residual income in one of two ways. Either we'll hold on to the property and rent it out, and we'll create that income for ourselves via serving as a landlord. or the second way is we'll acquire the property and then sell it with seller financing. We'll provide the seller financing to a tenant who will become a resident owner, and we'll position that in the marketplace to where it's cheaper for them to own the property on a monthly basis than it is for them to rent it. So those become easy sells for us too. So we have a good balance of we own property in one hand and we own the notes on property in another hand. So that's how we're pretty much set up.
How do you figure out? Well, so let's say a house is going for $300,000, and the rent in that area, let's say for that house, if someone was to just rent that house, let's say it was somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 in that range.
Mm-hmm.
You're going based off of what the mortgage is that you pay, and then what kind of like monthly profit? Because it seems like in single family houses, you got to do a lot of them to really bring that steady form of income versus having multiple family or buildings, for example, smaller buildings maybe. So I guess I'm going in. I want to buy a property, right? I have I discover a seller finance property. When does it start to become a situation where I know I'm nailing those, and how's my time? What's my learning curve on that versus where you can have bigger payoffs and other type of housing projects?
Mm-hmm. So the specific question is, what's the learning curve starting from scratch?
Yeah, the learning curve. So you start to get if I go and get a single family house,
mm-hmm.
I know that my mortgage ends up being X, right? It's seller financed. In order for me to start turning profits on that property, I've got to really know what that spread is, right? And so with multiple family, I'm not looking for a situation where, if I have one family in there and I'm at a 80% occupancy rate, someone disappears for a couple months, I'm good. But in a single family, if I do that, I go and rent that property back out to make that multiple stream of income, and it sits idle, I end up breaking even. How does someone go about figuring that out in the right way in the single family market, which could definitely be a lot tougher? Now you lose more in multiple unit properties if you pick the wrong place, but you obviously also have more of a gain. What's the theory in going with single family versus like multiple units?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to both, right? And I think a good real estate portfolio should probably have a little bit of both. Okay. And so the pros of a multi-family property is, one, you're right, you've got your risk spread out amongst multiple units. Second, you've got your maintenance spread out amongst multiple units, right? So, for example, you have a water main break in your single family and a water main break in your multifamily. They basically cost the same amount to fix those water mains, right?
Right.
So it's maintenance is where you're really protected as well. With maintenance and vacancy, you're really protected with the multifamily. The third part about multifamily that's really good is you can force the appreciation by increasing the revenue the property brings in and decreasing the expenses it takes to run it. So those are the good things. But what you don't get and what you miss out on are like the big windfalls of the economy when the market starts to appreciate, right? They don't necessarily appreciate in that fashion or in the same way that a single family would. So the appreciation with a single family, like the market is good. You can get some equity in there and you can pull equity out to acquire more. The other part, if one house compared to a multifamily, you're at risk for vacancy. But once you have a portfolio of vacant houses, then all of a sudden you've got that kind of same protection, that same hedge against a vacancy. So there's both. It's I like single families because they're simple, they're easy to understand. The multifamily, that can sometimes be, depending on the size of the building, can be a business within a business, right?
Right. All right, and then maintenance can be in itself a very costly thing in a multi-unit property. I mean, obviously you could hire somebody, but if things go awry, they can really go awry fast. Whereas single,
there's a million ways to make $1 million inside of real estate. There's so much different types of real estate out there.
Absolutely. So your students, for example, student comes to you and they're looking to get into the game. what are the first steps that you recommend for them as they're coming to you from that standpoint?
First steps. A lot of people think the first step is they got to locate the financial backing, or they got to have the money to get involved. And I think the most important part is, one, you need some foundation of education and understand how the whole process and transaction is going to work. But once you get to that point, the focus is really on getting good at finding deals, getting good at finding discounts, or finding deals and being able to turn them into deeper discounts. I think people underestimate the value that you bring to a transaction. Particularly, I mean, if you think money is your weakness, the person with the money thinks that, wow, I can't find any deals. That's their weakness, right? And I think there's more money out there. There's more money in the system than there are people that know how to find these deeply discounted properties. So whether you're going to pursue multifamily or single family or storage facilities or mobile home parks or land or shopping malls, whatever it may be, one thing that they all have in common is you've got to be able to find a deal.
Right.
So I think that's where most of the education should be stressed, and most of your, as you're honing your skills, it should be on that part. That's the hardest part. Once you've got control of the deal, you've got a deal under contract, the rest of the stuff is not rocket science at all. It's pretty easy to execute.
Do you want to be in better neighborhoods for these kind of things? Do you want to be – now, obviously, you can get a greater appreciation probably in better neighborhoods, maybe have more opportunity in a neighborhood that's not as nice, right? So, what do you look for? Or I guess from a portfolio standpoint, all of it, I don't know. Yeah, no, it's kind of like to continue on what we were just talking about. There's so many different ways to make money in real estate, and it just depends on, what's convenient to you, what you're comfortable with, and what you want to accomplish, right? I built the majority of my portfolio in the beginning in lower income neighborhoods because that purchase price to rent ratio is more in my favor as a cash flow investor. Now that I've got almost a decade of that under my belt, and I'm not so interested in growing, I'm more interested in preserving. We're upgrading and constantly rearranging our portfolio into nicer neighborhoods to where the ROI might be a little less from a cash flow perspective, but it's safer, right? You don't have all the volatility with the type of tenants that you would in a lower income neighborhood. So it just depends on where you are in your journey and where you want to go and how fast you want to get there. Land, okay? Yeah. When you go on Facebook, right, there's endless land that you can buy. And every time you pull up the land, right, it's like, the writing says it's great. And then you pull up and there's nothing for thousands of miles around. And, you could own this land for $1,000 in the middle of nowhere. When someone approaches land, is where that land is. I mean, you always say, obviously, location, but in land, is that an important thing to understand? Because people must be flipping land. I'm not sure exactly how they go about that process. So land is always something, houses I get, right? But land is always something that scares me, but there's lots of the money to be made in land. What do you think about land?
It's ironic that you bring this up, or maybe it's a coincidence, whatever the right word is there. That's the third asset class we're adding to our portfolio right now is land. And so we actually just got our first contract and our first deal. So we put this giant machine in place, and we did that maybe 3 weeks ago. So we just got our first deal today. Contracts in the other room, but it's the plan or the goal there is for us is to buy the land at a discount, of course, still, and then sell it on seller finance terms. And so that's how we're going to make money from the land. We're not going to develop it, which you could do. We're not going to prep it or get it prepped for a developer to come in and develop it, which is another strategy. Or some people just want to buy and hold on to it because they're land collectors and they know it's going to be worth more someday. It's another way. But we're choosing to sell it via seller financing. But as far as the buyer goes, there's a buyer for every piece of land out there. There really is. As I've been getting into this part of our business more and more, I've got a couple people that are into it deeply, and this is what influenced me to get into it. He was telling me about his very first deal he bought. Literally, it sounds very cliche, but he bought a piece of swampland in Florida unknowingly And he went to sell it, and the buyer went out there to check it out and said, hey, this is a swamp. Like, this is totally unusable. And he was really upset, and his wife was beating up on him and everything. And said, I told you not to spend our money on this stuff and these foolish entrepreneurial ideas you have and blah, blah, blah. And, he sat on it for about 3 months, and then he had another offer on it. And he was like, here we go again. The guy went out there to look at it, and he came back and said, it's perfect. I'll take it. Right. And he wanted a place to take his ATVs and mess around in the mud on the weekends. So the point is, whether people are buying it because they envision their dream home there someday, or they want a place just to get away, they're a doomsdayer, they're a tiny house person. There's so many different reasons to own it, and all of those buyers are out there as long as you get your piece of land in front of them.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Walt Disney bought swampland and built Disney World, right? So
there you go.
So, I guess that's, in Florida, he put all those acres. Everyone thought he was crazy. And now that property is worth more than some states are. So, from that standpoint, yeah, that's really interesting. I wanted to get your take on it. I guess it is ironic that you're going into land now, because I find it interesting, because that's like, as you start to see where people are land has become a thing that you're starting to read about more and more. That people are doing. I see it all over. Facebook. Like, I belong to different groups, and I see it moving. And I was so curious about that. Tools that you use to either hunt, maybe technology that you use help you. Do you go on Zillow and say, hey, here's what this guy's selling it for. Here's what the estimated price is. How do you begin to figure that out? Is it the tax rolls? What do you look at?
Well, once we acquire the list that have those symptoms of distress, right? Even if I found 1,000 houses that have code violations on them, most of those are going to get all repaired, and they're going to all get fixed, and the person's not going to be in any distress. But you get the handful in there that are experiencing some sort of financial issue, and that's it. They got a problem. So the first part is putting a message in front of them that's going to appeal to that person's problem. So our strategy is to find the problems and then promote the solutions. And when you're promoting that solution, you've got to put something in place that allows you to capture that person's information. So that's the first tool that we use as far as technology. And that comes typically in the form of a website where they're opting in to get an offer or get something free that's going to help them out of their situation. Or it's a phone number, a call capture phone number system. So those are two tools that we use when we're promoting our solutions to these people with these problems. So that's the first part. Now the follow-up, which is really ingenious. So the technology that we do is if they opt in on the website, they get put into an autoresponder that sends them text messages, and it sends them voice broadcasts. It continues to send them direct mail, and that thing just gets automated. And sometimes they're not ready to sell right now, but they are 6 months from now, and that's still working on them. So that's worked really well. The other piece of technology that's worked really well for us, and I don't know why this works better than us manually calling people ourselves, but it just does, is a company that we use called Sly Broadcast. Have you heard of that?
No.
What it is once we've sent out we sent out a postcard. Here's kind of the typical scenario. We sent out a postcard with a phone number. People call the phone number to listen to a 24-hour recorded message. And some will leave a message, some won't. But our whole point is to capture that phone number. So once we've captured that phone number, we've got this giant database of phone numbers. We can download that into this service called Sly Broadcast. Now you can record a voice message, and you can broadcast it out to all of those numbers. And we've all probably received those marketing messages where you have this recorded voice, right? This is not that. What this is it bypasses their ringer and goes straight to their voicemail. And it's almost 100% open rate from people. When you have a voicemail on your phone, you're like, well, who called me? I didn't hear it ring. Let's see what they said. And that gets an amazing amount of response back for us. So that's one of the tools in the technology that we leverage quite a bit.
I'll tell you what's really interesting. Just yesterday, the podcast hasn't come out yet, but I interviewed one of the top car dealership owners, and he has a software that he uses that does that same kind of thing that he developed. He does that same exact thing, and he told me it was like a 98% open rate for them. and it was different technology that he had developed originally for them that they now market specifically for the auto industry. But he said the same exact thing that you just said now, which is amazing. Two different industries, right?
Yeah.
Similar tool set, getting similar results. That's really interesting. And honestly, I hadn't heard. I mean, I knew about that the technology, but I hadn't heard people that utilized it on that kind of scale. What I talked about, and I think you find this interesting, because the internet is become such a dominant thing, and there's so much information out there, an overload of information. The ability to connect with people one-on-one again and be able to create that one-on-one connection becomes even more valuable than how do you do that on a mass scale standpoint, which is what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I think that's become more involved because, you go back 5 or 6 years, like guys like Gary Vee and other guys, social media. And yes, you're doing, I mean, you have to do those things now. Those are just kind of part of your tool set. Mm-hmm. But as far as getting to close deals and getting people that you can get deals, you need that more of that direct connection. And what had gone away for about 5 or 6 years, maybe late 2000s to early 2012, 13, 14, maybe even 15, is now I think coming back in vogue. That sales, getting in there and either calling if you can, if you have that kind of a sales force. But if you don't have that level of a sales force, to be able to, like what you're doing, broadcast out there and really make those connections. I think it's really interesting, and I think you're definitely in the forefront from that standpoint. I have to say, when I hear something like that 2 times in a row, it definitely provides validation. And it's funny, something that I didn't, just like you kind of brought it up, I just kind of asked about tools, and it was the first thing that came off his mind as well. So I find that really, really interesting. I want to kind of wrap it up. Where can people find you? Do you take people that can come and work with you and invest in some of the things that you do? I know, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Grant Cardone, but like he has people that he takes money from to be able to go and put money into his investments. Where can people reach out to you if they want to work with you, if they want you to buy their homes? How can they find you?
Sure. So, yeah, if you're listening to us right now, they obviously know how to find a podcast. So we have our own podcast, Epic Real Estate Investing. Okay. And then we just launched a new pilot program, a new pilot case study program, to where we're setting out to create a bunch of rock star badass case studies. And so it's a course that we put up online. It's called freerealestateinvestingcourse.com. freerealestateinvestingcourse.com is how to get your first or your next deal done with little to no money. And it's actually better than free. We're because it's the pilot program, we're actually paying people to complete the course. And one, we want to show you how to do this. And second, you're going to make us look good when you complete it. So we've put that out there. And so that's out there right now. So those are 2 ways.
That's really cool. And I tell you, when you cover real estate, it's like you said, there's so many different opportunities. I guess I might know what the answer is. Your answer is going to be, but I'll let you tell it. If someone's thinking about going into real estate, what is the very next step that they should take from thinking about it to going and doing it?
A lot of people say take action, but you can take action and take the wrong action, right? I would say look within your network, look within your circle, and maybe it's 1 degree of separation or so, but find someone who's actually winning at it, right? Find someone who's succeeding at it, and see how you can connect with that person, see how you can perform or provide some sort of value for that person or to that person. And I think there's a lot of options out there for mentors and coaches, and I would look really at the evidence first before picking a coach. Like, who's leading the life that you want to live? Who's being successful in what you want to succeed in? And start there and ask them for advice. So there's probably someone really close to you, and that'd probably be easier and a more trustworthy source of information for you right there. But and then get a basic foundation of education, right? Find out what they did and how are you going to be able to learn that? They might not be the one to teach you, but they might be able to point you in the right direction. And then, so that would be the first two things I would say. And third, I think this is really key, is go online. And we were just talking about this, how, all this multimedia or social media, you can meet in big groups of people. There's a great website called meetup.com, to where you do meet online, but you meet online for the purpose of meeting offline, right? So go find a community there that is interested in what you're interested in. And I guess we're talking about real estate investing. There's many of them on there. And I think being intentional about your environment, creating your environment, not leaving that to chance, and getting around like-minded people, positive people that are up to what you want to do in life, I think that's another key point too. So I think those are 2 or 3 first steps. I don't know exactly what sequence they should come in, but I think those are 3 things that would put everybody on the right track.
I'll absolutely leave it on that. That was fantastic. People understanding that you can't accomplish things if you don't have enough people in your corner. People say all the time, I could do it in spite of what people's belief is, but you do need some people in your corner, and having people around you that at the end of the day give you some vibes that you're in the right direction there's no doubt about it. Helps you continue to succeed, because as an entrepreneur, as you know, you go through highs and lows, and it's when the lows hit that people that don't have somebody to say, hey, pick yourself up. That's an important thing, because sometimes you do need that all you need is 1 or 2 words. You say, okay, I'm going to get through today. I'll figure it out tomorrow. And
David, I know you're trying to wrap this up, and let me just add this about that environment, about creating it, being intentional about creating your network and who you hang out with. Everything you said is 100% true. And what I've noticed, like if you look back in high school and you think about the concept of peer pressure, where, it forces you to do things that you might not have otherwise done. And typically in high school, that peer pressure has a negative connotation attached to it. You become part of the smoking crowd or the graffiti crowd or, whatever, the drinking crowd, whatever peer pressure has you do. I think you can leverage that to the bright side of things. Once you get older, if you start hanging around people that are successful, there's a pressure there that exists within that community for you to start doing what you need to do yourself. Right. And I think that success rubs off. I think when you can see people succeeding, just witnessing evidence that what you're up to works, that does an amazing amount for your confidence. And then additionally, you learn shortcuts, you learn tips, you learn tricks, you create these relationships where you get access to resources that you might not have otherwise as well. So there's a lot of intangible things like this in the form of support, but then there's a lot of tangible things and like the resources and the advice as well. So many different reasons to be intentional about creating your environment.
Positive peer pressure is the best pressure you can ever get. You're holding everybody accountable. Matt, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I can't tell you the insight, like our listeners, as this podcast is, I'll tell you something funny. The podcast, a little while ago, we reached out to a group and said, hey, how can we, I restarted the podcast back up. It was wildly popular about a year or so ago. And then I kind of took some time off and started it up. And I reached out to somebody and said, hey, can you help me grow the viewership on a podcast? I said, and she come back to me. She goes, viewership. She's like, you're already a top 100 podcast. I said, this is before we had moved in like the last couple of weeks to the top 10 and stuff like that. And she goes, you're already a top 100 podcast. She's like, this is easy for me. So I was like, wow, you know what? I'm going to start doing more and more of these things, because we already had some successful we had done from the past. I think that's what's amazing about the continuous learning, being willing to learn and pull up things. People are still going to the archives of stuff we did. We interviewed guys on franchise and stuff like that about a year or so ago, and that holds value. And I can't thank you enough for sharing it. Your time is valuable. Time is money, and taking some time to help other people accomplish their dreams. And I always say it comes back. Someone's going to listen to it and reach out to you in your program, and it all comes back your way. So I can't thank you enough for being on the Successful Life podcast.
Oh, well, you're welcome, David. And thanks for connecting with me and inviting me. I appreciate it.
No problem.